السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. Brothers and sisters, today I wanted to talk about racism. And I wanted to say unequivocally that Islam condemns all kinds of racism. In fact, Islam not only condemns racism, Islam eradicated racism. And we hope to be able to go over some real examples about that. We know, brothers and sisters, racism is a very big problem. It could range from something like isolation on one level, mockery on another level, to destruction, to violence, and even killing. That's why it's a very serious problem until today. From the beginning of time or early on till today. And even it could, as we know, it reaches the level where it causes one of the reasons of slavery was that Islam even abolished the slavery. Alhamdulillah. So we know it's a global problem, a worldwide problem, affecting many communities, many communities worldwide. So we, brothers and sisters, one of our duties is help to eradicate this problem from the world. We know ourselves, we are the target of not just racism in many cases, but also targets because of our deen. But it's a duty upon us to help everyone, help the society in general, help our own community, but help the society in general with this problem. Now, brothers and sisters, we have to recognize one thing, that this issue exists in our community as well. This is something that came from Jahiliyyah. Alhamdulillah, Islam, our deen, eradicated it, but it seems over time it has crept back into our communities as well in this day and age. So let us admit that, because without admitting, there won't be any motivation to correct it. So today's reminder, I think, is a good reminder from that perspective as well. So we have to correct ourselves first, start at home, and then we can help others, as we should. As an example, one that you all know, is about the interracial marriage. So many times it happens that a brother, a very pious brother, as far as we can tell, sticking to his deen, wants to marry a pious sister who sticks to her deen. But because of race and even some other factors, it's not allowed. Shouldn't happen. Obstacles get in the way. And brothers and sisters, we have to recognize that even within the same race in our communities, and I'll call it so-called race, and I'll mention why I'm calling it so-called race, inshallah, even within the so-called same race, we have problems when two pious, a man and a woman want to get married in the same race, either because of status or maybe a different tribe or something like that. So we have these issues, brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to resolve that. So this, of course, is not a reflection on our deen. Not a reflection on our deen. The deen tells us to do the right thing. It's up to us to follow. If we don't follow, then it would be no surprise that these problems start to come back into our communities. Brothers and sisters, let me start with definition of race. I'll start with a simple one, or just mention a simple one. Racism, by definition, is the belief that certain races of people are by birth and nature superior to others. So many definitions we can go with. This is a simple one. And race, brothers and sisters, what's the definition of that? Race is understood by most people as a mixture of physical, behavioral, or cultural attributes. It is actually different from ethnicity. Ethnicity recognizes differences between people mostly on the basis of language or shared culture. So race, one of them, as I just said, physical characteristics. One of those physical characteristics, as we know, as we're seeing, from ages and ages, is color. So that's one example. Now, brothers and sisters, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have to say on this topic, or about this? So there's an important ayah from Surah Hujurat, ayah number 13. And we want to go through that and go through the tafsir to understand it well, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha, وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O mankind, indeed we have created you from a male and a female and made you nations and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the one with the most taqwa. Indeed, Allah is all-knowing, all-acquainted. So, brothers and sisters, according to the tafsir Ibn Kathir, for example, Actually, all the tafasir that I was able to check, about 3, but there's many, that's all I had time for, are saying the exact same thing. Exact same thing. That this ayah is talking about the equality between mankind in terms of their descent, their origin, their lineage. We're all equal. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we all. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring and addressing all mankind. Ya ayyuhan nas. All mankind. Not just Muslims, all mankind. We're all a descendant, whether Muslim or not, are descendants of a single male, which the tafsir says, of course, is referring to Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and a single female referring to Hawa. And if you look at it, the tafsir also says, points out that in a sense, not in a sense, but in actuality, we are from a single male. How is that? Because we know that Hawa was created from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. So in terms of descent and origin, lineage, we are all the same. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us we're all the same. So how can one person be superior over another when they have the same thing? They have the same lineage. So pride over lineage, it's impossible according to this ayah. It's something false. It's something made up. It's artificial. Now here's another thing. While I was researching this topic, I came across something very interesting. I wanted to share with you. That scientists overwhelmingly agree that humans, biologically and genetically speaking, are all the same. I mean, we have DNA. DNA should be very distinct, or we think it's going to be, something that's different if it's different among ourselves. It's an exact like serial number. So if it's different from one to one person, then shouldn't there be a huge difference between the races? If there's something like that, like races, that's why I was saying so-called races. If there is really that thing called races, then the DNA should be completely different between races if there's such a thing. So the reason these scientists are saying that they discovered the DNA of all human beings living today is not 99% the same. It is 99.9% the same among all human beings. In fact, they also discovered, brothers and sisters, that sometimes there's a greater variation between a single race, so-called race. There's more variation within, let's say, whites, or within blacks, as opposed between whites and blacks, just using that as an example. So exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. So this led these scientists to say, listen, we only see, from what we see, there is only one race. It's called the human race. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying we're the same in terms of a lineage and origin. So the ayah is saying, brothers and sisters, in other words, that racism is completely forbidden. This is one evidence. And the tafsir actually mentions, the tafsir Ibn Kathir mentions that it is forbidden to mock, to make fun of, or harm another person over their lineage. So, but brothers and sisters, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning some differences, nations and tribes. So what is this about? So nations are, are made up of tribes, and we know that there are different nations. We recognize that, and we recognize that there are differences in tribes. So what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is He saying? Is He saying that there is such a thing as tribalism? That, there are superior tribes? Is that what He's saying? We have to understand. That's why the tafsir is so important. I mean, we know these words. I even went over the translation. Okay? So it's not like we don't understand the words, but what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means, we have to go to the tafsir. So is this saying that some tribes or some nations can be proud because they're from a certain nation? Is that what it's saying? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, the reason is لِتَعَارَفُوا, that you may know one another. Now what does that mean exactly? That you may know one another so you can distinguish one another. For what purpose? Not for the purpose of pride, not for the purpose of superiority. It's to distinguish each other, otherwise we would get all mixed up because we're in fact all one. So I'll read from you from one tafsir, from Tafsir ibn Kathir. It says, so you can identify by so and so, the son of so and so, and the tribe of so and so. So what's the benefit of that? What's the benefit of knowing that? How would we get mixed up? So from Tafsir Munir, it says, I'll read it exactly from the tafsir on this ayah. Tafsir Munir says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala divided them and made them into nations and tribes, small and great, so that they may recognize one another. That is because if each one of them was only known by himself without his roots and origin, that recognizing of one another, which leads to supporting each other, cooperating with one another, inheriting from one another, and fulfilling the rights of relatives, this would all not take place. None of this would take place. So actually, sorry, I mentioned Tafsir Munir. This is actually from Tafsir As-Sa'di verbatim, which you can look up if you're interested. So for identification purposes, it has a practical role. It was never meant, nations and tribes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them. The ayah is saying, but it's not created for the purpose to promote racism, tribalism, superiority complexes, inferiority complexes, and the list goes on. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, that the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the one with the most taqwa. Ibn Kathir says what this means is you earn honor with Allah on the account of taqwa, not family lineage. Not family lineage. So taqwa, of course, brothers and sisters, is to avoid the prohibitions and obedience to the commandments, doing good deeds. That's why Rasulullah ﷺ said, مَا مِن رَجُلٍ يَسْلُكُ طَرِيقًا يَطْلُبُهُ فِيهِ عَلْمًا إِلَّا سَهَّلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِهِ طَرِيقَ الْجَنَّةِ وَمَنْ أَبْطَأَ بِهِ عَمَلُهُ لَمْ يُسْرِعْ بِهِ نَسَبُهُ. He said, if anyone pursues a path in search of knowledge, Allah will thereby make easy for him a path to Al-Jannah. And he who is slow by his actions, slow to do good deeds, someone who's slow to do good deeds, will not be speeded up by their lineage. Their lineage is not going to speed them up, is not going to replace if they were slow or they did not do good deeds. The lineage will not help them. Rasulullah ﷺ also said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنظُرُ إِلَى صُوَرِكُمْ وَأَمْوَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنظُرُ إِلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. Rasulullah ﷺ said very clearly, verily Allah does not look at your shapes, nor your wealth, but He looks at your hearts and your deeds. Brothers and sisters, another thing about the ayah, according to Tafsir Munir, there's a sabab al-nuzul. There's a reason for revelation. Actually, there's a few. So I'll go over one. That this Tafsir Munir says that Ibn Abi Hatim recorded that Ibn Abi Mulaika, that on the day of the conquest of Mecca, Bilal radiallahu anh climbed up on the Kaaba and made the adhan. Some of the people actually said, this black slave is giving adhan on the Kaaba. This black slave is giving adhan on the Kaaba. So it's existed for a long time. So this ayah was revealed. The sabab behind it, according to the tafsir. This ayah was revealed, and when Rasulullah ﷺ received that, he reprimanded these people very strongly for saying something like that. Once again, no place in our deen for pride over lineage, racism, any of these things. Brothers and sisters, it is a challenging problem. We recognize that. It's a challenging problem. It's so challenging that it exists till today, all around us. We have to admit it. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma said, لا أرى أحدا يعمل بهذه الآية يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى حتى بلغ إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. So he was saying, I do not know anyone who acts by this ayah. Mankind, we created you from a male and female until he reached and made you into people that made you the noblest among you in sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has more taqwa. Then he continued, he said, وَيَقُولُ الرَّجُلُ لِلرَّجُلِ أَنَا أَكْرَمُ مِنْكَ أَنَا أَكْرَمُ مِنْكَ فَلَيْسَ أَحَدٌ أَكْرَمَ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِتَقْوَى اللَّهِ. So he said, one man will say to another man, I am more noble than you. I am more noble than you. He said, no one is nobler than another person except by taqwa. Except by taqwa. So, brothers and sisters, another evidence that this is a challenging problem. It will continue. It will be a problem in our community. We have to be vigilant. We have to correct ourselves. We have to teach our families. There's evidence after evidence how Islam deals with racism, deals with pride over lineage and descent. Rasulullah ﷺ said another thing. He said, أَرْبَعٌ فِي أُمَّتِي مِنْ أَمْرِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ لا يتركونهن الفخر في الأحساب والطعن في الأنساب والاستسقاء بالنجوم والنياحة. He said, Rasulullah ﷺ said, among my people there are 4 characteristics belonging to the Jahiliyyah which they do not abandon. One is boasting of nobility, reviving other people's lineages, seeking rain by the stars, and wailing. These are 4 that he said we would not abandon. So we have to take extra care and caution. This should be in our list of giving tarbiyah to our families, our children, etc., future generations. This should be top of the list, very high on the list. Brothers and sisters, of course, pride and arrogance is one of the sources of racism. Rasulullah ﷺ said, whoever has arrogance in his heart equal to the atom's weight shall not enter Al-Jannah. A man inquired about a person who likes to wear beautiful clothes. A man inquired about a person who likes to wear beautiful clothes and fine shoes. Rasulullah ﷺ answered him, Allah is beautiful and likes beauty. And then he explained that pride is rejecting truth. Pride is rejecting truth, one of the characteristics. Because of self-esteem and looking down on other people. For whatever reason that may be. It could be because of race, but it could be because of other things too. It could be because they're poor. It could be because of all sorts of things. In another hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ said, Allah the Most High has removed from you the pride of the pre-Islamic, the Jahiliyyah period, and its boasting in ancestors. This was a big thing in time of Jahiliyyah, as we know, as we went over. One is only a pious believer or a miserable sinner. You are sons of Adam, and Adam came from dust. Let the people cease to boast about their ancestors. Those in the Jahiliyyah who used to boast that I'm from such and such lineage. Rasulullah ﷺ said they are merely fuel in Jahannam. Or they will certainly be of less account with Allah than the beetle which rolls dung with its nose. No value whatsoever. Now, brothers and sisters, when Islam came, Islam is the solution for racism. It's what eradicated racism, including slavery even, something that was so rampant for ages and ages. Islam eliminated that. What did it get to the point of? That the companions were put into high positions of responsibility regardless of their color. You can research yourself how many of them, the companions, were actually black or dark-skinned. Yet that color did not make a difference. This is the truth. This is what real eradication, anti-racism is about. That not only they were not mistreated because of their color, they were actually honored. They were actually honored. This is the real anti-racism. So as an example, during the government of Umar, radiallahu anhu, when Egypt was conquered, Ubadah bin Samit led a delegation to visit Al-Muqawqis, the leader of the Copts. So seeing that Ubadah was black, Muqawqis said, "Take this black man away. Take this black man away from me and have someone else come to speak to me." So the Muslims replied, what? They say, okay, let's get somebody else. They said, "This black man is the best of us in knowledge and wisdom. He is our leader. The best of us and has been appointed over us. We all refer to his opinions, and our leader has appointed him over us and ordered us not to go against him." So Muqawqis, he replied to the delegation, "How can you accept this black man as the best among you? Rather, he should be the least among you." That's how he was. So Ubadah, he said, "Truly, there are 1,000 of my comrades behind me. There are people who have darker skin than me and more sinister than me. If you saw them, you would be more scared than you see me. I was appointed as leader, and my youth has passed, and praise be to Allah. You know, I am not afraid of 100 of your people. They face me alone, all at the same time. So are my comrades behind me." That's one example. Ata bin Abi Rabah was a scholar. He was of Nubian descent. In other words, he was black. He was black. But he was appointed as the first mufti of Mecca. The color doesn't matter. The descent doesn't matter. These companions lived these principles of anti-racism. Bilal radiallahu anh, who is, as we know, there's too many stories about how he was mistreated because of his deen, of course, and because of his race, so-called race, being black. Abdul Rahman bin Auf, it's a noble family, married his sister to him. And as I said, this issue is a big issue in our community until today. But this is how the companions, once they came into Islam, they became Muslim. This is how they behaved, exactly to the principles of the deen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. Now mentioning a little bit more about racism against blacks. I'll read some excerpts from the letter of Malik al-Shabazz, also known as Malcolm X. As we know, brothers and sisters, he was discriminated against. His whole community, black community, was discriminated against very severely. And he went through phases where actually, from considering, seeing that his race is being treated inferior, he went to the opposite direction and actually thought that blacks are superior. He had that belief at one time. Then when he was guided, he went for Hajj in 1964. And from there he wrote a famous letter. As I said, I'll share some of the excerpts, which opened his eyes. And he saw really what Islam is about, how Islam is a real solution for racism. The real anti-racism is with Islam. So I'll read parts of the letter. He says, from Mecca, he says, writing this letter, there were tens of thousands of Hujjaj from all over the world. They were of all colors, from blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans. But we were all participating in the same ritual, displaying a spirit of unity and brotherhood that my experiences in America had led me to believe that never could exist between the white and the non-white. You may be shocked by these words coming from me, but in this Hajj, what I have seen and experienced has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns previously held, and to toss aside some of my previous conclusions. This was not too difficult for me, despite my firm convictions. I have always been a man who tries to face facts and to accept the reality of life as new experience and new knowledge. As a new experience and new knowledge unfolds it. I have always kept an open mind, which is necessary to be flexible, that must go hand in hand with every form of intelligent search for truth. During the past 11 days here in the Muslim world, I have eaten from the same plate, drunk from the same glass, and slept in the same bed or on the same rug, while praying to the same God with fellow Muslims whose eyes were the bluest of the blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. And in the words and in the actions and in the deeds of the white Muslims, I felt the same sincerity that I felt among the black African Muslims of Nigeria, Sudan, and Ghana. So, brothers and sisters, to conclude, we reiterate that superiority of race or lineage or any other so-called marker of distinction, even if that's money or fame, these are all artificial. They're man-made. Islam rejects all of them. Islam only recognizes only one distinguishing factor, and that is taqwa, as we went over. Piety, good character, good deeds. Islam provides a proven solution to racism. So, brothers and sisters, to reiterate as well, it's our duty to help ourselves and the society at large. So it's part of the solution, brothers and sisters, is to give da'wah. If we have the solution, if we believe in our solution, which we do, then we should propagate that solution to as many as we can. Invite in a nice way. Give da'wah. How many Muslims, how many brothers and sisters as well, have you heard them say when they accepted Islam at whatever age, where were the Muslims? Why didn't you come to me sooner? I could have accepted Islam sooner. I would have wanted to accept Islam sooner. Of course, this is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they're saying, where were the Muslims? Why weren't you giving da'wah? Why didn't I hear about this until such and such age? So, brothers and sisters, let us beware of this vice creeping back into our families and our community. And keep in mind, brothers and sisters, to make this a high priority on the list of things, to teach our children, our families, when giving tarbiyah. Because, brothers and sisters, children imitate and they pick up from their parents. We don't want it to be that the parents have these racism tendencies, and these are passed on to the next generation, and then unfortunately the next generation, etc., etc. And we went over all these evidences to show the seriousness of the matter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to these few words. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل محمد اللهم صل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى سائر الصحابة والتابعين وعلى عبادك الصالحين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم ثبتنا على الإسلام اللهم نور قلوبنا بنور الإيمان اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون عباد الله اذكروا الله يذكركم واستغفروه يغفر لكم وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استوت راسه الله أكبر الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. هل أتاك حديث الغاشية وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية في جنة عالية لا تسمع فيها لاغية فيها عين جارية فيها سرر مرفوعة وأكواب موضوعة ونمارق مسفوفة وزرابي مبثوثة. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت فذكر إنما أنت مذكر لست عليهم بمسيطر إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.